Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Memphis City Council Chairman Berlin Boyd, tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, President and Executive Editor of the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Berlin Boyd, Chairman of the Memphis City Council. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
Along with Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. We'll start with the 3 vacancies, and we're chatting a little bit before the show that I think Bill, our resident historian, has said that is unprecedented. There would be 3 vacancies on the council. You all on the council tried in a marathon going past midnight session but about a week or so ago to get one of the first positions filled. It was Bill Morrison's position. Then you're aiming to do that again on December 4th.
Correct.
And then the 2 other positions you would vote on December 18th.
Correct.
Lay the groundwork there. And those districts are, let's start with just a little primer for those people who maybe don't follow this as closely as we all do.
Okay, well, we have District 1, which was the seat that Bill Morrison held. He resigned, and now we have District 6, which is was former City Councilman, now County Commissioner Edmund Ford. And now we also have District 8, Super District 8-2, which was held by Janice Fullylove, which she is the juvenile court clerk now. Those are the 3 positions. As you know, we spent quite some time at the last meeting going over trying to find a replacement for Councilman Morrison. We were at a stalemate. The vote typically was 6-4, majority of the time throughout the night. I think Bill.
And it takes, just to clarify, it takes 7 votes per the city charter. It's not a simple majority. It's 7 votes.
That's correct.
Okay.
You have to have 7 votes. So if we're down, since we're down now by 3 members, it's 10 votes now. So you still have to get to 7. Okay. I think Bill did the calculation. We had over 100. 107 votes cast to get us nowhere. But my position, I pretty much had a consistent vote throughout the night. I passed primarily throughout the night. So it was interesting.
Did you pass because that's generally what a chairman does, or was it just you weren't finding the candidate that you wanted to vote for?
Well, it's twofold. I think that one, the candidate in which I supported, I think that the candidates needed to be polished a little more. They're stepping into shoes and fulfilling positions that with a lot of, you have a short learning curve. And also as chairman, I'm a consensus builder. That's my role. And I'm also one to look at the fact that our charter clearly states that this is a nonpartisan body. The votes basically was clearly going down political lines, party lines, and also I don't like polarity. The council has been very good not having polarized votes, and it was really a clear, racial, concise line that was drawn that night. So I didn't want to step off into it. I didn't support that candidate. And
that candidate was?
I didn't support either one. It was Mr. Lonnie Treadway and Rhonda Logan.
Yeah.
I didn't know either one of them, and no one reached out. I think, people said, well, Miss Logan had a ton of supporters down there that day. That's true. However, let me find out about the candidate, who I'm going to be voting for. Let me find out about what you have done and where you have been, and so then they disclosed some other information about when she moved into the district, as well as Mr. Treadway. So the established residents haven't been there that long. So people say, well, she's been working, she's been out in the district. Well, not as long as I would have liked, but she definitely had some people out in the audience just supporting her.
Yeah. Let me turn to you, Bill, and talk a little bit about, I should probably clarify that once someone is put into each of these vacancies, they will serve out the terms of the people they replace, which will go through next year. That's the city council year and the county, city mayor's election next year in 2019.
2019, right.
But talk a little more about the process here, who was put forward. It's a strange process in some ways, and that there are 3 of them that are being voted on, it makes it even stranger, it seems to me.
Yeah, you have three positions to fill on the 13-member council. This is the first time in the 50-year history of the mayor-council form of government that you have had, that you will have 3 appointed members serving on the body at the same time. You've certainly had vacancies on the council before, but most of the time there is an appointment and then there is a special election close to that. That was the case in April when Philip Spinoza left the council and Ford Canale was appointed to that position, and then there was a special election on the August ballot, and then he was elected by the voters to serve out the rest of that term to the end of 2019.
And we say appointed, but that's appointed by the council, by the vote of the council, not
right.
appointed by the mayor. I think people often, associate appointments with
right.
mayors.
The council does all of this.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, so is it more difficult to get 7 votes for one of these 6 candidates who have applied for this? Is it more difficult to get 7 votes when you are down to 10 council members?
I think it poses a very difficult challenge because now you have to come up with a consensus candidate. I think based upon what I saw at the last council meeting, I don't feel that either of those 2 candidates will be the candidate that can get us to get to 7. I think that it should be a very interesting meeting coming up. Because I don't know if there will be a motion made by the members to suspend the rules in order to allow all the other candidates that did not make the final cut back in the pool. I don't know if everyone is going to move forward with the 2 candidates, Lonnie Treadway and Rhonda Logan, and try to get to 7 with one of those candidates. So I am just sitting back trying to play out various scenarios in my mind to see what will happen and what will take place on next Tuesday, on December 4th.
At several points in the numerous rounds of voting, you voted for Tierra Holloway, and Kemp Conrad, who abstained several times, voted for Mauricio Calvo, who were 2 of the other 6 contenders. Do you see any indications that someone might, in effect, blink who's on one of those 2 sides and say, let's just try to go with someone else here?
I think that may be a possibility. I've witnessed some really interesting votes to take place on that body. But I think what people are realizing is that right now we don't have a way to get either one of those candidates to 7 votes. So I think right now every member, when I recessed the meeting, I wanted members to have an opportunity to cool down. It was a high intense meeting, a lot of emotions. You had a lot of crowd participation. It was like we were at a wrestling event. Crowds were out there chanting and participating during the meeting. So I think what's happening now, everybody's calmed down and realizing, okay, I may have to look at another candidate. I'm sure our members are out there probably reaching out and having conversations and getting to know and meet some of the other candidates in order to figure out how we can get to 7 with those other
Let me
ones.
interrupt just for 1 second, and then we'll go back to Bill. You talked about this pool of people. I mean, how does that process work? I mean, if someone's listening, can they just show up at City Council next Tuesday and say, hey, put me in the mix? Or is there more of a formalized process for that?
There's a formal process. So what typically happens is we open it up. You pull a petition. You can either pull a petition from our website. You can go down to the Election Commission, or you can go to the City Council office, grab a petition. It takes 25 signatures of registered voters who reside in the district and what you're seeking. I always suggest get more than 25 because a lot of people don't know where they're registered. They'll sign your petition, but they're not really living in that district. After that, you turn that petition back in. The Election Commission qualifies you to make sure that you are a qualified candidate. You reside where you say you live. You have no tax issues, no pending tax issues, and then they send us a packet saying this person is certified.
So that's the pool.
That's the pool.
How did you all get to where there were 2 people who you were actually voting on? How did the other people in the pool get called out? Was that a formal process?
That's a formal process. So after a council member comes out, they vote for people. Whoever gets 2 votes or more moves to the next round.
Okay.
Those who not get 2 votes, they're out.
Okay. Bill, back to you. I just want to clarify.
And we should point out that that's the same process that is underway now. The council is currently taking applications for the District 6 seat, which is Edmund Ford's seat, and the Super District 8 seat that Janice Fullilove held. That process of applying is now underway.
And that's the vote that you all are going to try to take on the 18th.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
Back to Bill.
So give me an idea of some of the pressure that was building during those votes on Tuesday, because I think all of you were hearing from people during that, text messages, things like that, notes being passed. Was there a lot of pressure?
It was quite a bit of pressure. One thing that I will say, that my vote isn't for sale. My vote isn't up to be bartered. I don't trade votes, and I take what I do seriously. I don't have to have outside influences to say I can get somebody to support you as chairman if you support them. So a part of me saying that we've had a good council thus far. I don't need to cast my vote behind someone who is coming in already with the type of influences that they are trying to come in with. And there was one thing that really kind of made me a little bit disturbed, was the fact that there were people yelling from the audience saying, overrule the chairman, or vote against the chairman. And I'm like, this is a process. And we would not, we try to keep our process in a parliamentary manner, and a manner that we run pretty decent, good, clean, safe meetings. And it was really disturbing to me on Tuesday to see some of the shenanigans and the foolishness that took place.
I was talking to several council members about the council's path since 2007. In the 2007 elections, we had the largest turnover of council seats in the 50-year history of the mayor-council form of government. 9 seats on the 13-member body turned over. Then in 2011, we had the largest return of incumbents, because we had 12 incumbents who were reelected, and Lee Harris was elected to the one new seat there. And then in 2015, you had 6 new members. So we're losing the last 4 members of the city council who were elected in 2007. Give me an idea of where you think the body has been since 2007. Has the council kind of changed itself over these 11 years?
Well, the council's changed, different dynamics. I mean, I think we put elected individuals who really understood and understand the actual business aspect, and understand the meaning of community, and understand the meaning of public servant versus politician. I have seen a wave of change on that body. There's a body that people focus on more so, that we want to see Memphis moving. We want to see Memphis growing. This is not really a battering stage for us to get up and just cast and throw stones, but we are trying to do good work. And you've covered it enough to see the momentum. Memphis has momentum right now. We're moving. People are talking about Memphis no matter where you are. And I attribute that growth and the momentum that we've seen because we have elected good councils. The one thing that I've noticed that's kind of frightening is we have lost a lot of institutional knowledge. It's a lot to learn and a lot to know on a legislative body when you're dealing with the budget, when you're trying to know how our form of government works. It's a lot of institutional knowledge that we've lost. But we have elected some people that's pretty sharp, that's catching on, that understands. And when you're on the outside looking in, you always say what you will do and how you would do things. And once you're there, sitting in those seats, you understand the complexity that goes along with being a council member.
You mentioned early that you had, I think, and I want to paraphrase you here, or I don't want to misquote you, that the vote for the replacement, the vacancy replacement, it was starting to break down on racial lines.
Yes.
I think people who don't pay attention to council very much would assume that it always breaks down on racial lines. Is that the case?
That's not the case. The majority of the time, if you notice, pull any vote, we typically are 13-0 or sometime 12-0, 11-0, 11-1, 11-2. It's very rare that you see any vote that we cast where there are 7 African Americans voting for one thing and 6 white members voting against. The majority of the time, you will always see a real consensus. And I tell people this, if you notice when I passed the marijuana legislation, that's one of the best, the best examples of utilizing how members, the different members that supported it and that were against. You had just as many African American members against the marijuana, decriminalization of marijuana legislation as it were white members against, but you also had some for and some that were against.
Right.
So
and that was decriminalizing small
amounts of marijuana.
Small amounts of marijuana. Is some of that because, and I've heard people say that over the last 3-4 years, the committee process has worked better, and this is way in the weeds of how the council works. But in the past, things were fought out at the main council sessions. But that over the last 3-4 years, more work is done in the committees. So what comes to the full body has been argued out, has been talked out. Has that been your experience?
Well, some committee meetings are heavily attended. Some committee meetings aren't. I think that what's going on is more people that's elected now are willing to compromise. The one thing that I've noticed this body has taken on the words of we can agree to disagree. We can be disagreeable, but yet, we don't have to make it a big public display, and everyone's willing to compromise, because I think at the end of the day we ask the question, what's best for Memphis, what's best for our district, what's best for our constituents. With
about 10 minutes left here, you talked about the experience and the learning curve that was to some degree debated in the last election with the referendum to change the term limits from 2 terms of 4 years to 3 terms of 4 years. I've forgotten. You were in favor of that? There were so many different voices. Were you in favor of expanding it to 3 4-year terms?
Yes. I mean, I'm the chairman.
Was it because of these reasons, this learning curve that you're talking about?
It's a major learning curve. I mean, there are several budgets. You have enterprise fund, you have sewer fund, you have stormwater fund, you have our general fund. So, you have 78% of our budget goes towards public safety. You have to understand where ad valorem taxes come from, where they are applied to. You have to know what percentage of sales tax we get back in order to balance. But so it's so complex, and if a person says, "Hey, I can get in there and I can learn all this within a couple months or a year, and I can be great at it," no, you won't.
Another issue that was on a referendum was to, and I won't go, we did a number of shows on this and many articles, but IRV, instant runoff voting or ranked choice voting, it was not rescinded. So you expect, let me ask the question this way. The council voted for a public information campaign that was going to help educate people on instant runoff voting. A lot of critics said that was a vote to support something in the interest of council members. Did you feel good about that vote? Was that something that the council should be doing, that they should be voting in favor of swaying voters one way or another on an upcoming referendum?
I don't necessarily think it's the council's position to sway someone, but I think if the council supports referendums, it is the council's job and obligation to inform the public as to why we supported these referendums. It was our opinion and still my feeling that ranked choice voting isn't something that's good for the city of Memphis or our constituents, based upon testimony that Linda Phillips and several others did with the state election commissioner. So there are some things that we have to do in order to comply. The taxpayers will be up for $6 million. So we just wanted to let the general public know These are some of the things that we will face, and the reason why the council decided to put these referendums in place.
That $6 million being like changes to the voting process to
new
be
voting
able to handle
machines.
new voting machines to be able to handle ranches. Bill.
Do you think that the rejection of all three of the ballot questions is a barometer on how Memphis voters feel about the job the council has done?
No, I don't. And I'll tell you the reason why. I think the reason that our electorate voted the way that they did, they were confused. I think the referendums, they were confusing. I think there was some information that gotten out. Harrington pulled, said that we were pulling something so he could not run for mayor. I just think that it was a major fumble. I don't know how the language got changed on the three-term referendum. I know what I signed. I know what we sent over to the Election Commission, but what ended up on the ballot, I'm like, how did this happen? I think when you read whether or not we should have runoffs, election, I think it was kind of somewhat confusing to the voters. I think also when you asked a question, some people thought if you voted against, you were repealing. Some people said if you voted yes, they thought that you were supporting keeping it in place. So what I've learned after we've had this election, that a lot of people they were confused. And that was the reason why I felt that the council should have an education campaign in order to let people know a yes vote is to repeal, a no vote is to keep them in place. So it goes back. I don't think it's a barometer, Bill. I just think it was about voter education. Just we didn't do a good job educating the voters.
Okay. So the elections are coming up in 2019. Are you ready to say whether you'll be running again for the council at that point?
Yes, I'm ready to say I will be seeking re-election in 2019. It's been interesting. I've been asked that question a lot. A lot of people speculating about other things, but yeah, I will be seeking office again in 2019.
Your name has been thrown around as a candidate for mayor.
I've heard that quite a bit.
Are you going to run for mayor?
City mayor?
Yeah.
Right now, I will run for city council.
But that's not a no. All right, we'll leave it there then. Let's go to a couple of things with just a few minutes left here. We could read. Anyway, let's go. We'll move on to a couple more things. We just have a few minutes left. There's been a proposal put forward to replace TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, which has been the provider of power to Memphis for many, many years. We've written about it a bunch. The part of that proposal was a group that was going to has bought a unfinished nuclear power plant down in Alabama. That would become the provider of the bulk of the power to Memphis if Memphis signed a contract, and then the rest could come from Arkansas. And basically what I would, as a lame person, say is the TVA equivalent, a kind of network of power providers in Arkansas. There are a lot of questions about that nuclear power plant and that whole deal. It's never been finished. A lot of investment has to be put into it. But what's come forward, Bill had a story this morning, I think breaking story, that there's also been proposal forget the nuclear power plant, the unfinished plant and the risk associated with that. Why wouldn't Memphis look at ending its contract with TVA and instead get its power primarily from across the river in Arkansas at rates that the proponents say is half the cost of what we pay TVA. What are your thoughts on that? What do you know about that?
I think this has been a debated issue for quite some time on the council. What this has done is created a level where now we can look at alternative energy providers and sources. For so long we have been tied to a contract with TVA, but the risk when we ask questions about what are we currently paying for our electricity costs and where it stands, and we get to all these comparisons. Bill, you've seen these nice fancy flyers. They say, our ratepayers pay the lowest energy rate than any other place in the country. But what it does is now it raises questions. Can we actually get our energy for a cheaper cost than what we're currently paying for TVA? The speculation with the Bellefonte plant, it's mere speculation. And I never saw the council being willing to submit or sign any type of letter to put us out there, expose us to a risk of something that may not come to fruition with somebody taking this nuclear plant and rehabbing it and making it, helping to provide power energy to Memphis. I think one thing that J.T. Young, the president of MLGW, has been doing is providing us with additional opportunities and sources. He's doing a good job. So as the expert, I'm looking to him in order to help guide us into a direction where if it's something that can benefit the consumers, then that's what we need to look at and go for.
And they are coming to you just coincidentally or ironically, depending on how you want to put it, MLGW is coming to the council soon to talk about a rate increase.
That is correct.
Which has to be approved by council.
That is correct.
What's the temperature on that vote?
You know, it's a very compelling argument, and I will say this on MLGW's part, because everyone here has witnessed a sunny day and your power goes out. Our infrastructure here is toast. I found out that even our water plants around town haven't even had any upgrades since some of them were built in the 1940s. Some of them are using the same equipment that was put there when it first was built. So,
and again, 10 seconds. If that money is going towards improvements and towards capital, you're more inclined to vote for it.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for being here. We had a whole bunch more to talk about, but appreciate the breakdown on all these issues. Thank you, Bill, and thank you for joining us. Join us again next week. Dorsey Hobson, outgoing superintendent of Shelby County Schools. Thanks, and good night.